Welcome to Adapted, the podcast where we explore adaptations of various forms. I'm today's host, Tom, and with me is...
Pat.
Today, I was reading some books. I've read these before, but they're...
We should well, what plays
What are we doing? Oh, crap. It's been a long week, audience. Today we are going to be discussing Othello, the famous Shakespeare play, obviously, but we're also going to be looking at the 1965 version that Laurence Olivier did, as well as the 1951 version from Orson Welles and the 1986 Franco Zeffirelli interpretation of Othello, the Verdi opera. So that's what we're covering today. We are in Othello land. We're going to be touching on a lot of great performances in that play. But I want to start with the kind of theater stuff. Looking at some books on acting and how to act that were written in the late 16th and early 17th century in England. So there are actually a few books on acting at that time.
That's cool. I had no idea. Again, I always find it interesting. The Tom teaches moments, I had no idea on that. I assumed they just made it up.
They kind of do. So a lot of these books, because theater isn't a profession until the 1570s, just because the vagabond laws come in. So people are just kind of wandering players. And then when the vagabond laws come in, that's when you actually have stationary theater. The first stationary theater in London wasn't until 1567. I think it was the first stationary theater probably since the Roman Empire. So it just wasn't a thing. So Shakespeare's kind of an innovator. We think of Shakespeare as kind of...
Classic, yeah.
Yeah, but he's more of an establisher of a tradition than than somebody who is classic or working within something established. And so a lot of these things on acting are really trying to bridge between acting and oration or rhetoric, which is the only thing they have to go off of, because otherwise you don't really have plays. I mean, the first plays in the way we think of plays in England are 1550s, 1560s, 1570s. And so you have things like Henry Peacham's 1577 book, The Garden of Eloquence. And he's looking at different theories of mimesis, and he's actually using the word mimesis. And here he is using mimesis as imitations of speech that include acting and gesture. The proper imitator should strive for three things in his action: pleasure to the eye, delight in the voice for the ear, and a profit to the wit and understanding. But one thing Peacham brings up is this idea of action and gesture, and that should have some quality which we call mimesis, some kind of resemblance to the world in some way, or some proper imitation.
Does he give examples? Like, is this a thing? Is this just the like?
He doesn't, but we do have actually not photographic, excuse me, they don't have photographs back then, illustrations of how to do these things in a later book, which I'll get to. And I could send you some of the illustrations. They're pretty fun.
To the audience?
And I can send you, I was speaking to Pat, but yes, audience, if you email me, if you figure out my email and email me, I will email you, or I'll just tell you what to look up, and you could look it up on your own, like a responsible Google user. But anyway, so in 1597, you have Thomas Heywood's Apology for Actors, which in part is a defense for actors who are accused of being immoral. But he defends these actors in terms of some acting technique, and he actually describes acting technique back then in some way. And the belief was, and Heywood actually takes up this belief, he believes it as well, coming from the critics, is that actors bring the audience to emulation. The audience will watch the actor will emulate the audience. This could potentially be a disaster. And yeah, he writes the spirited action. And again, they highlight action. This is something Peacham highlights and Heywood highlights is action. can new mold the hearts of spectators and fashion them to the shape of any noble and notable attempt. So, what action seems to be is movement, specific movement. And people who are reading old, dusty books don't follow history or follow good moral examples because only through specific action, movement, and so forth can you actually get these examples.
To be clear, this isn't like a new idea. Like we've talked about this
No,
before. I can't remember if we talked about it like online or offline. Like it was, it's Michael, isn't it Michael Chekhov that we talked? Is it Michael Chekhov that we said that
Michael
does
Chekhov
this?
does this. Now, granted, Michael Chekhov's the 20th century.
But
He's
that's what
not.
I mean. I
Mhm.
mean, but I mean that's recent as far as I'm concerned. This is right. I mean, this is still a thing. Like I guess it's
It's
just like,
not. It's not done today. You mean?
yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh,
Like
yes, yes, yes.
this
Yeah.
is
Oh,
not like
yeah.
because it sounds silly. I mean, you got to admit this sounds stupid as all hell. Like somebody being like the motion will unlock the move.
Yeah.
And it will. This whole thing. I mean, we kind of hear it. It just sounds like mystic mumbo jumbo. This is not usually what people think of with acting, but it's not an idea that died. That then it's gone quite through.
It's going through because, in part, Haywood is also saying he's describing action as a verb, the thing you're doing. You have to
Yeah.
get the verb right. And anyone out there who knows Stanislavski or the method or anything like that, you begin with the verb. What are you doing? What is the action you're doing? And it's a little more abstract. It's not specifically um, uh, kicking in this way. You're attacking, maybe, but still it begins with the verb. And Haywood is doing that. Haywood is saying that you have to do an action, do a physical thing. And what that will do is once you figure out the action, that will tie together and is superior to oratory, invention, disposition, elocution, memory, pronunciation. All of those things are kind of bundled and made real by the action. There's a scholar, Evelyn Tribble, who actually was on my committee and when I was getting my PhD, and her argument was this is why you don't see any evidence of Shakespeare actors rehearsing as a group, or you see very little evidence that they were just interested in coordination. The idea of acting as a group and like figuring out your action relative to someone else, that's a modern conception. You're supposed to figure out your action on your own. It's an individualized thing. It's a modern thing, a modern kind of method Stanislavski thing to be like, my action is to make someone else do something, to influence, to persuade. That's the big change, right? And I think you're right. I think like the Michael Chekhov idea of positioning yourself in some sort of way touches on this in a lot of ways. But that seems to be maybe, according to her argument, why people go off on their own and find their roles. Because the acting technique of that day was you have to find the action as an individual and do that on your own. Group rehearsal is just for basically
Making sure we don't step
blocking.
on each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's for like big scenes like that. And then now your question, what do these actions actually look like? Well, in I believe it's the 1630s, we have another book. This is the third book I want to mention, and this is John Bulwer's Chronologia, or the Natural Language of the Hand, and Chronomia, the Art of Manual Rhetoric, which is an annoying title, and it's very hard to remember, but
Those are terrible
it's
names.
a terrible name, yeah. But basically, he comes out with how action connects to emotion, and it's for
Yeah.
him, it's the hand gesture. Now, there's a little debate here. How much of this is the orator, and how much of this is the actor? I think people like Joseph Roach, who's a contemporary scholar, they're very encouraged by this being about the actor. I can understand that encouragement, but whatever. There's still just I'm just highlighting. There's still a little debate here, and it shows basically in pictures a number of hand gestures and the emotions they connect to. So how you're supposed to feel an emotion is you
This is what
do a
I thought you were
particular
talking about before,
gesture.
because this that's a Michael Chekhov thing.
I
Like Michael
think
Chekhov is that's the like you
that's the Michael
stand in this
Chekhov
way,
thing.
and when you bend your knees and your back in a certain way, then you feel sad, and if you move this way, you feel happy, and like that
That
thing.
thing, yeah.
That idea. But again, like I mean, you see a lot of that, throughout the 19th century. You always hear people who are like, the actress, if you see reviews, and they'll be like, the gestures that she did, it brought me to tears. And I was wondering, like, did it really? Or when you did like when you hear all these reviews, like if you ever read these kind of reviews, that's what they say, and they'll be like, their gestures are impeccable. I was so moved, and I'm like, I wonder, like I'm like, is that really what was going on, or is that just like bourgeois? Like I was so moved.
Well,
I don't,
according
what
to
is it?
this, yeah, and I've read accounts of Shakespeare, and we'll discuss them either next week or the week after, of first-hand accounts of seeing plays in Shakespeare's time. But apparently people were moved. And yes, these gestures were very specific. Were there to invoke particular emotions. And from research that people have done in staging plays using these gestures, they also come off more dance-like. It's not supposed to be you do the gesture and then you say something and then you do the next gesture. It's you're supposed to gracefully move from one gesture to the next, which is what he says in the book. This is not a modern invention. It's just this is what they try to do. And apparently it has a sort of dance-like quality that's very moving. And if you think of the limitations of a lot of these theaters, they're very crowded. Indoor theaters like Blackfriars are probably hard to see. A lot of these gestures have the necessary broadcasting ability. Plus, you also have like little boys playing Desdemona. I mean,
Yeah.
you need some sort of guardrails to help them out. I think this probably helps with the fact that it's a little ridiculous that, 50-something-year-old Richard Burbage is saying how much he loves this 14-year-old boy.
I mean,
I
this
mean,
is very true.
it's probably very silly, but if it's
You suspend it. I mean,
staged in
obviously,
such a
yeah,
way,
it
yeah, and I
does
think
feel like it feels like they accepted that fairly readily. So,
it seems so, but I think some of the arguments I read were like, this helps them do that. This helps them connect, or helps the audience connect to the characters by having a sort of shared language of gesture. And actually interesting. Bulwer, the author of this, thought climate was a big problem. So he's like, in Italy, they do this much more easily. In England, it's very cold, so their hands don't move as much. So you really need to work
I
with them,
love
which
it.
is, yeah, really,
I
really
love
good.
it.
Yeah, but that was the idea. And there's this idea of like the
You would have
natural.
Ibsen. Ibsen was screwed. It's really cold there. Chekhov, oh man, it's
Nobody can do
really
anything.
cold. Yeah,
We just
There
sit there.
yeah, their acting is done.
You have to really work at it. But there's this idea in Bulwer and in Haywood and other people of like why natural is actually not good. Natural is like you're born a certain way, and that way is needs to be refined. It needs to be kind of improved, and these kind of gestury things are one way of doing that.
Refining, yeah.
Yeah, refining. Because natural and in contemporary times, we think of our action as being separated from a specific thing and more of an abstract thing in order to get at the natural. This idea is like, well, it's very hard to be natural. And it's weird. I mean, this is something Evelyn Tribble, one of the people on my committee, brought up in one of her books. Is like, well, if you look at the brain and where emotion registers, actually gestures are closer to emotions than other things. So why is gesture or specific movement dismissed so readily in the modern world? It might not actually be the crazy thing that it sounds like.
I mean, I don't disagree with it in the sense that I'm less a fan of naturalistic, the naturalistic acting, and I think there is a sense of abstraction works. There's the great scene of what's her name? Uta Hagen. Have you seen the Uta Hagen picture of her doing in Mother Courage? There's like the scene when because Uta Hagen played Mother Courage when they bring in the body and she can't. Do you know the scene I'm talking about? And she can't acknowledge that it's her son. And they have photos of her. And I guess, what they did is they just had her, which is brilliant because it's abstract. This is Brechtian. Brechtian acting. And so when they bring the body in, she literally does this thing where she like tips her head back and just like silently screams. I remember seeing someone says it looks like the horse in Guernica. Like that's the kind of like
The image.
gesture that she and it's a gesture. It's clearly it's completely not naturalistic. It's a gesture that she does because she can't acknowledge that this is her dead son. And so she has to pretend that it's not. And so, obviously, if this is naturalistic acting, it would be some sort of weird thing where she's like, I don't know who it is, and she go make tea or something stupid. But, she doesn't do that. She tips her head back in this horrific posture and silently screams. And apparently, according to contemporary things, and the photo is kind of disturbing. And according to contemporary viewers, they're like, it's really hard to watch. Like, it's really was a hard scene to look at. It totally not naturalistic, but apparently wildly affecting on the audience. Um, and so I wonder if there's a sense here that some of this gesture stuff is that the modern stuff seems to be more and more and more about the actors feeling how they should in the scene and then you watching it, whereas this gesture thing does seem to be more of making sure that what the actors are doing affects the audience. Like it's not internal, it's sending it out. And it does seem that it works to some extent on the audience, but we don't see that anymore. And I don't know if that's because of film or what the reason for that is. But apparently it does work. So I guess I'm saying like I don't mind it. I think naturalism in acting is sometimes a bit overrated, especially on stage. And sort of a sense of abstraction in theater, I think is good. I think it's why I like 40s and 30s and 40s films because they still use that weird kind of voice where they're slightly abstracted from reality. Like there's always this sense of you're watching a movie, and in some ways I think it works better.
Yes, the reports of good performances are that this is a means of accessing emotion, and people do talk about crying at playhouses in this time period. So it must have been emotionally affecting in the way it's done. It seems like there is from roughly the 1860s or so until today, every generation wants to be more and more real, quote unquote. That is just a concern. It's this romantic or even post-romantic concern with getting at natural reality. And every generation just seems kind of fake compared to the generation before, or stylized if you want to actually embrace what they're doing as opposed to dismiss it. And I don't, I wonder if we've hit that tipping point because have you seen any mumblecore films, Pat? And I struggle to even
That
remember the
doesn't sound like
titles.
something I'm going to want to
Well,
watch.
mumblecore is this movement. It was around 2008, and I think it died off. But they were extremely. The idea was it was extreme naturalism, and the movies barely had a conflict. They had a
Yeah,
very
that
slight
doesn't sound
conflict.
like a thing.
And they were called mumblecore because it's just kind of people kind of mumble and they don't really try like it was like well that Marlon Brando he was really trying too hard. We're gonna tone it down a bit.
Oh, they would not have liked Olivier.
Yeah, oh God. Yeah, they're gonna really tone it down. And I remember going to a conference where they were talking about mumblecore. They were doing a whole thing on mumblecore.
Is this like an actual? Is this is like a Hollywood? This is like a true mainstream
Oh
movement, or was this like
yeah,
a?
it was a
Oh
mainstream
yeah,
movement. It
okay,
was kind of an independent film movement.
okay, yeah.
And
Do you know of any of the major ones that I might have seen? Again, knowing
I
I'm
think the
not a
Purple
modern person.
Couch. Let me
Oh,
see.
that doesn't sound like a thing.
The ones I saw, which had, I will say this, the ones I saw which had some value was, I think it was called White Christmas, and this is how good it was because I can't even remember the name. Uh, Joe Swanberg was a big one. I'll get his name. Greta Gerwig, who directed the Barbie movie. She came out
Ugh.
of this.
Okay,
So the
interesting.
Barbie movie, I don't think is mumblecore in any way, but she kind of,
How did she go from theater to bubblegum pop?
I don't know. I
Oh,
think
guess I
she
gotta see
just
more of her
started writing
movies then or
stuff,
something.
and she had connections
Interesting.
with a few people. Yeah,
I
Happy
mean, I give her a bit more
Christmas.
creds now.
Yeah, Happy Christmas was his movie with a few big actors, um, and that was
I guess what my with these types of things, this is a film only genre. Obviously, you can't do that in stage. You can't do that in live performance. And I think that maybe that's partly what's going on here is this there's such and maybe this is why theater becomes such increasingly abstract. It's like art becomes increasingly abstract, photography becomes increasingly like how specific can we make it in the same sense that theater starts going increasingly abstract, film starts to become this sort of like total naturalism. But it's a bad analogy, but I don't know if that's sort of where this bifurcation is coming from. But I do think that naturalistic acting is overrated. As I say, the is it Olivier who said to Dustin Hoffman? Is it
Yeah, so it was Olivier
the
talking to Dustin Hoffman on Marathon Man.
Marathon Man? Why don't you try acting? Like it's just the sense of like there's a bit of a borderline masturbatory quality if they're just like, I'm really feeling it
Well,
today.
you
Like,
should know the mumblecore actors and writers are all in their 20s and 30s. So, prime masturbation years.
yeah,
That's
and
what I
and
would say.
that's there's just this sense of like you're not actually like, I'm really feeling it out here today, and I'm gonna make this scene. I'm uh, like just take a step back, and I think maybe we're gonna, although I don't know, maybe we're gonna get to a more stylized type of acting again, but it doesn't
I'm
seem that way. It doesn't seem like they're going that direction. But I mean, film has become such a weird medium these days because it's not quite working the way that it did in the same blockbuster sense. We've seen so many big blockbusters just don't seem to quite be making it, and we're increasingly seeing the Marvel sort of universe isn't generating the same kind of money that it did. So it'll be interesting to see what the studios start leaning towards. I don't think they're going to start leaning towards auteurism again, but
Well,
I don't know.
that's maybe they will. Marvel Studios seems to single-handedly, and this is part of the streaming service thing, they seem to single-handedly have brought back the studio system. And with this,
But
the
it
old,
but that's dying, isn't it? I
and
mean,
it
Those Marvel
seems to
movies
be
aren't working
dying.
anymore, aren't
Yeah,
they?
that it seems to be like this worked very well when you had a Thanos to come and threaten you. Like you can revise the studio system if Thanos was threatening the Earth. But once you get rid of Thanos, you don't need the studio system anymore. And I don't know what's going to happen. My hope is, and I'm not a big television watcher, but my understanding is television is where
Yeah,
it's
is where the good
at.
stuff is coming.
Yeah, and so maybe we'll see non-naturalistic acting or whatnot. The problem is a lot of this stuff is so expensive that non-naturalistic acting is greeted so poorly. It's just
Because
so
people don't know how to
hard.
do it.
They don't know how to do it, and I think people don't know how to receive it.
Yeah.
There's this concept of, well, this thing has to be like me. It has to be believable. People say this all the time. I just want the thing to be believable. You go, well, you watched a $200 million space fighting movie where they shot laser beams. Like nothing about this has been believable, but the scowling of the actors. I can recognize scowling as being relatively naturalistic.
I guess it's the same. I mean, we had this, when KJ and remember we talked about this. I think it was with the Mario movie or maybe one of those ones. I can't remember when we were talking about it, but like video games. And it always bugs me when people will say the video game wasn't immersive because like the textures didn't load properly or like, this thing. And I'm like, they're not, what do you mean immersive? Like, and I was reminded I was playing a video game. I'm like, of course you were. Like, like
Are you
it's
insane?
are you out of your mind? Like, what is wrong with you? You're not living in an alternative universe with these kind of things. And so I think the same thing with film. I would rather a film operate on a realm where it embraces its limitations than where it tries to present that it's showing me the Truman Show, like the actual Truman Show, not the movie The Truman Show, like that it's actually these people walking around.
Yeah, I don't know. I might not be. We may be not paying attention to enough like independent stuff to really see where the new the new thing is. But regardless, that seems to be what was going on, at least in the early modern time, was this kind of gestury thing. And it's interesting if you look at actors in the Restoration. Thomas Betterton comes to mind. There was this idea that, and we know this because the actor who came after Betterton was a guy named Coley Cibber, who wrote a sort of memoir about theater and kind of helped spark sort of celebrity gossip culture. But a lot of what he was writing about was, oh, Betterton has the perform. He has Hamlet because he inherited the gestures from Shakespeare himself. So he's close enough to Shakespeare. So he got all the gestures
Mm.
right. So we have it, the real thing. And so there's this concept there that also dies out, which is yes, these gestures are really cool, but they're also pretty innovative for the time, and they become stale pretty quickly. They become conservative and stale pretty quickly. So, by the when is Betterton around? 1660s, 1670s, 1680s? Like at that point it seems like this is something designed to preserve something very old and not allow the actors to find a way of getting at their roles in new ways. But anyway, that was a fairly long
I
Tom
don't know. I find it
teaches
interesting.
theater.
I thought it
Yeah,
was
I think it's
Tom.
interesting.
Tom teaches theater.
Tom
I think that
teaches
was it.
theater.
I think it was a good one.
Yeah, I'll send you. They have these really beautiful illustrations in the original of what the gestures should look like, and I'll send you those along. A friend of mine went to a performance specifically designed from that book, and she was like, "It's like dance.
I
It
can't
moves like
imagine what it would be
dance.
like, and it would be really cool to see it.
It
I
would
would
be
love
really
to see
cool.
it.
Yeah, that would be interesting." But anyway, moving
Speaking
in.
of theater, let's talk about Othello.
Yes, very good. Othello. So, I will say this. I think of the four greats, this is my least favorite
Yeah,
amongst
no,
the
I think that's
four.
that's not a question. Yeah, that's not a question right there.
Yeah,
It is my least favorite amongst the
it
four.
is. Yeah. I will. It's Iago's play, and I think it's also probably the most religious of the plays as well.
The one in which the sort of, I mean, not false morality, but in which this sort of like Picayune morality just takes over. Like, there's just this sense of, she did this, there's just this sort of vengeful God kind of hanging over it. Maybe it's Calvinist. It strikes me as the most Calvin. Like, there's just this sense of just absolute righteous morality, just
Mhm.
over this overweening morality over this play, right?
There's this kind of idea of like Iago, just as Falstaff, as you mentioned, calls out. He makes everybody funny by being around him. Iago sort of makes everybody sinful by being around him.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about with this kind of overview of this Puritan notion is true. It's also somewhat undercut by the fact that Iago is so much more fun than everybody else. Like you just enjoy watching him.
Is Milton saying that the devil is more
Yes,
the
that's
Animal House argument?
is that what the Animal House on? I don't know if
Isn't
I've.
it Animal House
Does he
that
say
has
that?
like Donald Sutherland's like, is Milton saying
Oh.
here that evil is more fun than being, and then he's
Mhm.
like, I agree with you. This is boring. It's like I think it's the Donald Sutherland
Oh,
character.
does he say that?
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he does.
Yeah. That's the Blake concept too, which is like whatever, we don't have to go down that road, but I think it is undercut by the fact that yeah, Iago is just a lot more enjoyable to watch and you enjoy kind of what he's
Well, I'm not
doing.
saying this is Shakespeare's position of morality. I just think that's what it is. That's what it has. That's its. I mean, maybe that, to your point, there might be something of this. This is the Othello and these others are just sort of this Puritan, like absolute morality of just like bitterness, and then Iago's kind of like it's a little fun to be bad though. Like there's a little bit of undercutting of that. And I'm not saying it's actually Shakespeare's position.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Do you find Othello to be moralistic? The character Othello.
It's his sort of just sense of wrong, of being wrong. I mean, again, it's sort of it has this sort of like he's the angry god with a sinner in his hand. Like it has this that feeling to it. Um, and I mean, I'm not saying that he's right, obviously, but there is this sense that that's what he is. He feels he has this sort of like I've been wronged, I can do all things. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I mean I think that's somewhat I don't know if I fully agree. I get that his morality is very simple and then when he feels completely justified in killing her because, as he says, if she goes on, she'll wrong more men. So
Yeah.
there is this sort of, it's not just me, I have to do it for the good of the whatever, whatever, whatever. But he's also like incredibly vital in a way that doesn't strike me as puritanical at all. And maybe this is infected a little bit by the performances we were watching, but he,
No, no, I would agree. I mean, he's certainly kind of he does not have that in the beginning. He's not that in the beginning. And I don't mean to say that he is a representation of Puritanism.
oh, I don't think you
He,
are either.
but I just think there is this it's just there's this sense of religiosity and just sort of absolute morality of individuals who have that doesn't really exist in the other ones. That's I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess so. He's a little more nuanced in other things. I think this and Richard III are where we get representations of absolute evil.
It's the best representations that aren't just the literal bastards. Like Shakespeare does this with the bastard characters, where bastards are always evil. Like there's just they just that's what they are. John the Bastard, or is it Edgar?
Hmm.
Edgar, I can't remember which one it is. It's Edgar, right? In Lear.
Or is it Edmund? I think Edmund
That's
is.
what I was gonna say. I can't remember if it's Edgar or Edmund, whichever
Whichever
is
one
my problem.
is the best.
Whichever one's the bastard.
Hmm.
I can't remember which one is the bastard. But and I think there's a third one that has a bastard. And the
Henry the
bastard.
Sixth, Part One, has a bastard.
Oh,
Who's
that's
also
why I don't
evil.
remember who it is.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember because I played him once.
Oh, so
Mm.
yeah, that's bad
King
luck.
John has a bastard.
Who's the bastard in King? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Anyway.
But anyway, the bastards are always anybody who's a bastard is always evil, like flat out evil. They have they never need to justify their evilness. That's all they are, right? Um, except for Richard and Iago. Those are really the only other ones who are evil and never feel the need to justify their evil. Richard kind of does because he says that when he saw Rutland killed on the battlefield, that's when he changed. He says it, but you don't really believe it. Um, and Iago, same thing. Iago, I loved your analogy with Iago when you said what's his modern equivalent with all of his
Oh,
stories.
his modern equivalent is Heath Ledger's The Joker. The Joker keeps coming up with reasons why he has scars, and the point seems to be that he has every reason, therefore he has no reason. He just comes out of the ether as this force of anarchy. That seems to be the same thing with Iago. Iago has three reasons he gives, none of which seem convincing. That his wife slept with Othello, which seems complete. He doesn't even seem convinced of that.
But he
That he's
says it.
he says it. Yeah, he says, I don't think so, but I'm going to act like it's true. He has some kind of racial problems. And then the other one is that Cassio has been promoted over him. But he doesn't seem committed to either, any of them. So it just seems like since he gives every reason, he gives no reason. He's like the Joker. He's just every evil reason or every reason for anarchy that's possible.
Yeah, so he's Shakespeare's best non-bastard evil character, other than maybe Richard, because both of them will give reasons. You don't believe Richard's reasons, and you don't really believe Iago's reasons. And it's sort of, I think, to your point. That's the point. You're not really meant to buy them. He gives them, but no one believes them. They're not important, and that's why he's a great sort of evil character.
Yes, and I think that, and he has that line of "I am not what I appear" very early on, and so there's this kind of and the idea obviously is that that echoes the "I am what I am that I am" the statement
Yeah,
of God.
I am. Yeah, yeah.
Shakespeare's clearly echoing God, and Orson Welles is echoing both of them because he adds in a line about he adds in a line where Iago describes Othello as he is what he is, which is seems to be directly referencing both the King James Bible and the reference from Iago in Act One.
It didn't actually pick up on that, but it's actually really, you're right. I don't think that's, I think you're exactly right, but I didn't pick up on that, but that's totally correct.
Yeah, I think that's why it's there. I am not what I am, which
Yeah.
is Iago's line, and I think that's why Wells puts it in because it's not.
Yeah.
I
He is what
looked it
he
up.
is. I am not what I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because I then went through the Folger and was like, wow, did I miss that? I was like, no, Wells is Wells has a thesis and he is seeing it through. But yeah, I think that's what's going on. So there's this kind of idea of the Antichrist. I mean, he's declaring himself as the Antichrist, which is that his reasons and his identity, his reasons for action, are completely invisible to us they even seem invisible to him. That's why he just keeps giving up random reasons why he's doing what he's doing. And it ends on a moment of silence. It ends with him
He
going
just
like,
saw, "I won't tell you."
yeah, it's such a baller ending. I
It's That's
love
a
that.
great way to
It's
go out.
so good. Yeah. Yeah. You know what you know. From this point on, I will speak no more.
I mean,
That's
it's really
so
good.
good.
It's really good.
It's so good. But it's also this moment of like, you will
Because
never know.
everyone, including the audience, wants to wring a monologue out of him, and you're not gonna get it. It's a really ballsy move by Shakespeare and a really good move by
Yeah,
Shakespeare.
it's real. I think about being in the world of that play, being like, this guy just ruined a bunch of people's lives. Buddy, why did you do it? I will never say. That's it. I will never say. I mean, that's just like, huh, what?
Well, I mean, they're like, well, I guess we'll torture you to get you to say.
Mhm.
Like, that's all they got.
That's all they got, and it's completely unconvincing. You know they're not getting an
You know he's
answer out of the
not.
man.
They're not going to get anything out of him.
Yeah, yeah, and that's seems to be what it is. Is like that's what evil is. It's this sort of distance between what you want and why you want it. There seems to be this like there's all these talks about reputation too in it. Like Cassio says, I am done. My reputation is separated. It seems to be like once the action of the person is separated from their sort of vital desires, that's when evil kind of creeps in. And so Cassio wants to be a good soldier. He wants to be, whatever, the lieutenant. And, this kind of corruption seeps in and he loses his reputation. He becomes divorced from himself. And Othello, I think the appeal of Othello is he is so himself, right? And I mean, that sounds like a bumper sticker pop song, but he seduces Desdemona by basically telling her his story.
Yeah,
And he
by
says it
saying,
was
yeah, I had a hard life. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and he does it. He's like, I didn't try to seduce her. I wasn't doing it with art or anything like that. I was just explaining my story, and she wished she could be like that. And so there's this kind of sense of he is. I get the sense of he is such a person who is comfortable and is kind of so fully himself and so sort of grand and filled up with his charisma and so like kind of vital too. Like you get the sense that this guy like he fights and he loves and he lives. He's this like giant romantic figure. He is the larger than life character. And even going to Cyprus, like the Turks just crash into rocks when he shows
When
up.
he just is there,
He
yeah.
just shows up, and everybody just all his
I do
enemies
find
just
that whole
die.
I do find that whole thing funny because they sent him there and they basically like, we need you to go because you know the fortifications better than anybody else. And then the ships just crash. He doesn't do anything. And then they're
Yeah.
like, good job. Congratulations on your victory. And part of me is I'm like, is this just sort of a commentary on, like Spanish Armada where they just crashed? Like there was just like, what did he do? But you're sort of like, you kind of get, but everybody, yeah, I get the impression he did something. Everybody gets the impression he did
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. He's so like he's so good. He's so charismatic. Of course he did something.
Of course, he
It's
made the storm.
Othello. He
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
do the
Othello.
wrong thing. And I guess a little bit of this is the sort of exoticism of the East. There was this
I
big
think that's what they're going
thing
with.
with
Yeah,
Moors back then, and a lot of times Moors were evil. And I think this is you see this with Christopher Marlowe also. And I think there's this attempt to take this exotic Eastern thing and revitalize it in some way or give it new life, but also keeping with it this sort of intense romanticism. And I think that's what's going on. And Iago is he's so much fun, but he's also seemingly without appetite. Like
no, he doesn't want
he
anything.
doesn't
He just
want
sends his
anything.
wife away.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He doesn't eat. I don't even think you never see him eat. You never see him sleep. You never see him. He doesn't do literally like he doesn't do any normal bodily thing.
Yeah, and it's a play where people have sex, right?
Yeah.
Like Cassio has a girlfriend of sorts. He's clearly popular with the ladies. Othello is clearly having a enjoyable sex life. Like there's people are eating, they're drinking. Um, Iago has he doesn't want anything. It's so straight. I mean, for a character who is evil, and supposedly evil is an excess of appetite. That's one way of describing it.
Well, evil is, yeah, it could be.
Yeah, but it's not him. That's
No,
not
I
his
mean, well,
evil.
that's one definition of evil. The other definition of evil is it's an absence of good where good ought to be.
Yeah,
He's just an absence. He's
yeah,
just
that's a
he's
better
just a
point.
hole. He's the hole in a shirt. He's
Mhm.
literally that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger because it just keeps pulling at the threads. Like he's an absence of good, and just that just pulls all the other good away. It just renders it non-existent. So that I think is the sort of definition of evil he is. He's a non-existent. He just tears good. He removes good. He doesn't actively want anything. He just removes good where it is.
Yeah, it's go. It's an absence. It's an Augustinian
Yeah, it's
idea of
Augustinian.
evil.
Yeah, that's what I think is going on here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's
Yeah.
a hole. He's a hole
hmm
into which goodness goes.
Good. Yeah. Oh, I really like that. What do you think of Desdemona? I have to say,
Maggie, Maggie Smith does well with her.
she does. Yeah.
She
I
does. She
think
gives
she
her
got
a
an
lot
Oscar
more.
nomination
She
out of
gets a
it.
lot more interest out of Desdemona than normal. I mean, good Lord, is it a dull part? Like she doesn't do anything. She literally does nothing. The most active thing she does is try to plead for Cassio. Like that's her most active. She pleads more for Cassio than she does for herself. She's a dull character. She's just sort of she's a foil on which the other characters just project their problems almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, she's really hard to read. When you sit down and read the play, she doesn't she doesn't add very much. I mean, this is the problem with having a character embody goodness. Like that's
Yeah.
the last thing I think I would ever want to play is a character who embodies goodness, right?
Well, this is Dostoevsky's. I mean, have you read The Idiot?
I have read The Idiot, yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is Dostoevsky's problem when he tried to do The Idiot. He wanted to do like a purely good character, and he was like, "My God, this character is insanely boring. It doesn't do anything." It's just like it just doesn't play well.
Yeah, it's also the problem with Paradise Lost compared to Paradise Gained, where the center character in Paradise Lost is Lucifer, and the center character in Paradise Gained is Jesus. After a while, you're just like, oh, can we bring back
Can we go
Lucifer?
back to
This is
Lucifer?
really boring. Yeah.
But I think that's just true. I mean, if you do this entire, you imagine doing this entire play from Desdemona's perspective, like even that weird Ophelia movie. At least the Desdemona doesn't do anything. She never leaves the room practically.
Yeah, she's faultless. She has no real arc of development. I mean,
No.
what's her arc of development? Because she finds out she's under threat a few minutes before she's killed.
Yeah, and even then, she's just like, he didn't do anything. And like,
Mm.
oh God, at least denounce him now.
Yeah, I guess there's one scene early on where he strikes her, and then she's kind of
Yeah.
confused by that. But we don't really get a lot of her perspective there. I mean, Shakespeare just doesn't seem interested in her, and it's
No, because she's
unusual.
just she's just there, and that's to your point. It's like usually he does very good. Well, I mean, we were talking about like females within Shakespeare,
They're
like
usually the better
his
characters.
they usually are, but sometimes he just has these sort of victim characters who just sort of like they just get beaten down, and that's all you're meant to see of them, and then they just kind of disappear. And she's kind of the classic of that. She has no function other than for the rest of the play. And yeah, it's unusual for him because oftentimes his women tend to be really interesting, and here just no good women. I mean, maybe Iago's wife's a little better.
Yeah, she's a little better. She is she has some agency. She enjoys kind of being naughty, but she also realizes what the hell happened when she did what she did, stealing the handkerchief and all that.
That's also the biggest problem with this play. The handkerchief thing just makes no sense. Like the plot of the play is so hard to like. I mean, at least the Olivier one, I kind of bought it a little more just because you kind of like saw it develop a little more, and Olivier, despite his sort of over the topness, does kind of make it work. Um, but I'm like, Why does he buy? Why is this handkerchief thing such a like? No one's gonna buy that. Why does anybody buy that? I just didn't. I don't know. You know what I mean? It strikes me as just a.
Yeah, I mean they're in a problem where he can't ask her, "Did you give it to Cassio?" And he needs to have physical evidence that Cassio has it and is giving it away. And so he has to see Cassio giving it away, but he can't ever ask Cassio because Cassio would be like, "Yeah, I found it in my room." Um,
But this is just like, but there's so many weird things where like even just when he does kind of go off on the thing with her before when Iago's wife is there, and it feels like this is a pretty clearly moment where she should have said something. It's like the moment in Much Ado About Nothing, where they're like, "Why doesn't what woman was it that talked to you last night outside your window?" And it's like all the woman has to say is, "Oh, it was me," and the whole plot falls
falls
apart.
apart. Yeah.
And at this point, it's like all Iago's wife has to say is, "I gave it to Iago," and the whole thing falls apart. You know what I mean? Like it feels too. This is the Romeo and Juliet moment of this play, where it's just like this is too drawn out and convenient that it just happens to fall the way that it does. And it always bugs me. Like it just his jealousy doesn't quite seem to make sense in that sense with the handkerchief thing. The rest of it you can kind of buy it, but the handkerchief thing seems so weak.
I think what it is, and I think you see this with Olivier's performance. I think maybe this is why it works. Is there has to be this, and it's in the play. There has to be this pre-existing potential for doubt, which is he's older than
Yes,
her and he's a
that's what
Moor
you
and
need. Yeah, you
she's
need that.
a European, right? Which is there, and you do have to, as a performer, kind of play that up a little bit, highlight that they shouldn't be together.
Yes,
And
this society
Cassio
has a
is
lot of difficulty with this. Yeah.
Yeah, and Cassio would be a better match. Cassio would be a much better match for her. And there you go. So that, and I think Olivier kind of touches on that a little bit. Maybe Orson Welles does, but I was so lost in his expressionistic Dutch angle
Yeah.
shots that I had a little trouble seeing what.
Orson Welles' version is really interesting because it has nothing to do. I mean, it could be any movie. It's just like it has this really. I don't know what you liked. What did you think of the Iago and his movie?
We'll go into. I like the Iago.
Yeah,
And I liked, I mean, the testimonial was fine. I mean, she's not that
she's
interesting. Yeah.
she's incredibly dull. Yeah,
Yeah, she's pretty. Apparently she was recast because this movie there's a book called Put Money in Your Purse, which is about the hectic financing of this film, which is apparently they got to Italy to film it, and their Italian backer on day one came out and said, "I'm bankrupt. Good luck." And they went, "What?" And so they started filming, I think, in 1949, and Orson Welles spent 3 years and himself went bankrupt trying to fund this, and they had to replace the Desdemona. So all her scenes are sort of inserted in random points in order to fulfill
fill
the
it. Yeah.
yeah. So I think
I
my
wonder if
my
this is the movie that if you ever, there's a great story where Orson Welles is talking about he was trying to raise money for a movie and it would have been around this time, so I bet it was this movie. And he says he was at like a resort somewhere and he said he'd seen Churchill, like Winston Churchill kind of like swimming around and just kind of doing stuff at the resort and was apparently there too. And so he says he was at lunch later and he says I was out at lunch with a potential financier to do the backing for my movie. And he said he was a Russian. And he goes, he was a white Russian, not a red Russian. So a capitalist Russian, not a communist Russian. And he said, while I was at lunch with him, Churchill walked in, and Churchill kind of like, gave me like a head nod and kind of nodded at me. And apparently, because the Russian was floored that Churchill had given me acknowledgement. And he goes, I got my money from this guy. And he goes, I went to Churchill later because I saw him and I went to him and I said, "Excuse me, could I just say to you, thank you so much for just that head nod. Like you acknowledging me was a big deal. It helped me win money from my backer." And he said, "So I really wanted to thank you." And he said then he goes, maybe a week later, we were still at the same resort, and I walked in with another potential backer, and I was going to my table, and he goes, and Winston Churchill stood up and bowed to me, and then sat back down again. And he goes, this is where he goes, he was a very, very good man. He goes, he had a very good sense of humor. But, so it was this kind of idea. But this would have been, I imagine it has to have been in between Churchill's prime ministerships. So it would have been right around this time. So it could have
Yeah.
been this movie.
When did he come back in? Was it 51?
51 or 53, I can't remember which.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I thought the backer was Italian for this, who then dropped
Well,
out.
I think
Maybe
he
he
was
got it.
trying to get money. He was trying to
Oh,
get
yeah.
multiple backers,
Yeah,
probably
probably.
after the thing had fallen through. If the Italian fell through,
Yeah,
he
that's
probably was
true.
trying to
That
get
might be
money elsewhere.
between. Yeah.
And I think, because I can't remember if it was 51 or 53 that Churchill got back in.
That's a
But
fun story.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I just like that story. I just think that
Yeah.
story is hilarious.
But it's a movie. I like it, but it's one of these movies where you can see when he was able to do what he wanted to do and when he was constrained by budget. Where he's
Yeah,
just sort of the prologue I love.
Prologue's
The
great. It's
prologue is
really
great.
good.
We should describe it. It's
Go ahead.
the opening is after Othello and Desdemona are dead, and they are on a procession through Cyprus, presumably to bury them. And you see behind them is Iago in chains. And as they're leading the bodies away, they put Iago in a cage and pull the cage up onto a high wall. So he's just exposed outdoors in this cage looking down on them. And the procession is gorgeous. There's
It's
just
gorgeous. It reminds me of like Seven Seal. Like it reminds
Mhm.
me of that kind of just feel. It's really, although I think this is before Seven Seal, right? Um,
no. Seven Seal, I think, was in the 40s.
Oh, I thought it was 50s. But either way,
Oh, mhm.
I don't know. But it's got that feel. Like it just has this, it's really cool. It's a really good opening. And then he just has this weird voiceover
Oh, you're right.
montage.
57, sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was later, yeah. But it's sort of this weird voiceover montage summary of the play. It literally reminded me of like an Ed Wood movie where they're just like I'm just gonna summarize the entry here. Like what is this? But the opening is really cool. And then there's this montage thing where I'm like, I guess he just wanted to get to the plot as fast as he possibly could.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The Act One stuff doesn't really work at all. The impression I get is because they're in Venice at that point. They clearly seem to be filming in Venice. And the other stuff, the Cyprus stuff, it seems to be on a set. And so some of it is on an island somewhere looking at the ocean. A lot of it is just these beautiful buildings and they're just sort of angling up. So you can't really see the ocean or even space, land most of the time. But it seems I get the impression they're in Venice and they have like no time. They have no money. And so it looks like a cut job. They have Iago summarizing things. Some of Iago's monologue is at the wedding of Desdemona and Othello. All of it, he's talking to Rodrigo. We lose his opening monologue, his Act One monologue, which
Yeah,
is
it's not there, yeah.
awesome. It's just, I mean, there's lines of it in different places, but it's not unified. So you don't even get the like, hey, audience, I'm going to let you in on my plan, which is so much fun. It's like it's the great joy of the play is we get to do the plan with the guy. That's all gone, and so that sequence doesn't work at all. However, I'd say I really like the Iago.
Diago, I like him because he's got this sort of like cat like he's very purry, right? His voice is great. And Cassio is what we go to Cassio as well. So it's just kind of has this like purry quality, right? I don't know, it's very feline. And I just find him he's like the movie is very as you said expressionistic. It's surreal without like using surreal elements. Like it feels like a dream. And this guy just feels like he just floats in and out of scenes in this sort of just I mean it's demonic in the sense of just purely creepy again, just like a cat wandering in a room, delivering a monologue and just sliding out. There's just this like eerie quality. It's like It's like Poe-esque almost, like Edgar Allan Poe kind of quality of villains. It's just a really cool. He's great. Wells is fine.
Yeah, Mac Moore apparently is the name of this person who didn't have a very prominent film career, any kind of career after this. But yeah,
I mean,
he's
he's
very,
also like singularly unattractive.
yeah,
Like
he's really ugly.
he's not a good-looking man, and it's great. Like it's just so good. And I mean, that's probably why he didn't get any other roles. But for something like this, he's just such an obvious liar, but you just kind of can't stop looking at him and listening to him. And it's a really creepy performance. And I really like him.
Yeah, he seems like an interesting history. Apparently, his real name is Alfred Lee Wilmore, but he immigrated to Ireland, and invented an Irish heritage and just became like Mr. Irish and started
Hmm.
like doing
Not
Oscar.
many people did that.
You just go the other way, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and started doing like Oscar Wilde plays and things like that. So and he founded the Gate Theatre in Dublin, apparently. So he's a theater guy at least, but
Interesting. Because I don't think I've
weird.
seen him in anything else. Pretty sure I
No,
haven't.
no. I think he had a very limited film career, but he had this whole like fake Irishman thing going on. But
Weird. Because he
yeah,
does, you can tell. I mean, he's got a slight Irish accent. Like as he even talks, he's got this slight brogue almost underneath it. But that's interesting.
that
Apparently,
is, yeah, yeah. But
dude.
weird guy. But you're right. He looks rat-like, and like his hair is really kind of too long. His
Yeah.
clothes don't fit.
His
Like,
clothes are always weird. When they show him from a distance, it's like a marionette almost.
yeah,
His pants are very high. And he just
and too
kind of
tight.
walks. Yeah, he just kind of walk. The way he walks, I'm like, my God, it's eerie. It's really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, it's impish. He looks like a little imp. That's
Yeah, maybe that's what it
yeah.
is.
Yeah, but it's a very once he's able to do things, I wish we had just more straight on monologues. They cut a lot of his monologues. A lot of his work is with other actors. And so we don't get to spend a lot of time with him. Um, yeah, I would say Wells is fine in
I
the
mean, it's fine.
performance.
It's not great.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is a lot of the sets are very interesting. So what you end up
The
seeing,
sets and the camera is very interesting. The
yeah,
sets and the camera works very well. But it's just kind of Wells doing the no, where's the handkerchief? Oh, it just has this
yeah.
very oh, like he's fine. He doesn't botch the verse. It's
No,
just
he also doesn't do a lot of the verse. I
he
mean,
doesn't
the verse is
do much.
cut to hell.
Yeah, it's just so sliced.
Yeah, it's real. And what I don't think we should just blame that on the money. I think Wells wanted to do that. I
Yeah.
don't think he's that interested in the verse in the way Olivier is. I think he is interested in this is a really creepy world. I don't want any air to get into it, but it's also very ironic because it's in this sort of tropical space, which it feels like. It feels like a tropical space. That area they're filming is, it looks beautiful. It's outdoors. You see a lot of sky. And then when you see the buildings, the architecture of the buildings doesn't seem to make sense. You're not never entirely
No.
sure what
It's
this
the
world
MC
looks like.
Escher kind of style,
Yeah.
like you never quite know where the stairs are, or how you're going to get up or down.
Yeah, it's the if you ever see The Passion of Joan of Arc, I don't know if you've seen that film.
No.
It's one of the great silent movies, and it's actually really
Oh,
worth seeing. It's people who don't like silent films tend to like this movie a lot.
oh, then I would love it.
Yes, but it's on Criterion if you want to.
Oh, yeah, check it out, actually.
Yeah, but in that movie they built a really elaborate set, but the way they filmed it is you can't tell where anything is because they're so interested in the close up, and it reminded me a little bit of that. It's a seems to be a very elaborate set, but you just never know where anything is. And when they're indoors, there's also a lot of indoor spaces. The indoor spaces are labyrinthian. There's no light in them. Um, they seem impossible. Like you just move from one chapel to a sewer to a room of columns for some reason. Like this room has a lot of columns. There's random gates
But that's how
everywhere.
dreams work. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
that's how
is.
dreams work.
Yeah,
That's why I love the trial. I was actually talking about the trial recently with someone, and I said I love the trial. Did we do that in the first season?
we
No,
did it in the first season.
yeah,
Yes.
and I love that. I love the aspect, and this is what Wells gets right. Wells does the trial too. This reminds me of the trial, just in terms of like how the sets and scenery and just some of this kind of stuff works together. Because I love the idea of going into a house and asking for a random person and being told they live there, and then being shown a room and there's a giant courtroom behind it. Like that is the scene from the trial that I still think about. I love it because it's so dreamlike. That's exactly what happens in dreams. You show up in places, you do things, they suddenly work, and then doors open into rooms that you didn't know were there. Like that's how dreams work, and it's so cool when that happens in a dream. I love that in dreams when you actually have those kind of dreams. And so for that kind of stuff, I think this has that feel of it. It has this sort of dream like those rooms shouldn't connect kind of feeling, and I love it. I think that's really cool about it. So between the impish Iago kind of creepily crawling with his weird pants through like it's so weird and it's really cool through the scenes and just these weird scenes that make no sense and scenery. I think it works, right?
I agree. I think it works, yeah, really well. And there's certain showstoppers. The opening, the death of Rodrigo in the
Oh
bathhouse
gosh, that's
looks so
creepy.
good. Yeah.
It's so creepy when he's like stabbing through these boards trying to stab the guy. I mean, that has like a Game of Thrones feel to it. Like trying to kill a guy who's running away through floorboards, right? I mean, it just has this like desperate murder.
It's
It's
really
cool.
good. So, audience,
Yeah.
so Rodrigo, when he assaults Cassio and then is killed by Iago, they do it in a bathhouse. That Cassio happens to be in this bathhouse, as is Rodrigo. And I think Iago is still fully dressed, despite being in
Yeah.
steam rooms. He's
Again, it's
still
like
fully
yeah.
dressed. And so he ends up like stabbing Cassio, and they're looking for him, and he hides under the floorboards, and he just calls out Iago, and Iago takes his sword and starts stabbing through the kind of floorboards you'd see in a sauna, something like that. He starts stabbing through, and it ends with just a cut of all you can see is the blade of the knife going through apertures, and
Yeah.
it abstracts, the space abstracts, so all you see is a blade and these openings that the blade is going through, and it's really great. It's really,
Yeah,
really cool.
it's a movie that's best for that actor's fake Irishman's performance
Yes. Yeah.
and for just the utter creepiness of the space that Wells creates. Wells's performance, I mean technically it's in blackface, but you could be forgiven for not knowing that.
Yeah.
Like
It looks like he has a tan.
it looks like I wouldn't have even known if I had no idea what this movie is, I would never have even noticed that he
Guessed
was
it. Mhm.
doing it. I mean, yeah, I would have just been like, oh, he's in the Mediterranean. He's
He's
like
been
he's had
outdoors
it.
too.
He's been outdoors. It's just
Mhm.
like, and Iago is not because Iago's painfully pale.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I would have assumed.
Mhm.
So at least the blackface doesn't feel it
I-
doesn't intrude. It just sort of
no.
feels like, and Wells's performance is fine.
Mhm.
Doesn't stand out. It doesn't detract. It's fine.
Mhm. Yeah, he seems kind of part of the scenery. And Orson Welles, it also seems like by this point he's become a sort of abstraction of himself. Like he could just kind of show up and say things in his great voice,
Yeah,
and
and that's the
he's like,
thing. That's why I'm saying the handkerchief, the handkerchief,
yeah.
with the handkerchief. He just keeps shouting it like he's not doing very much here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could say it's a minimalist performance, unlike a certain performance
Ah,
from the
yes,
next decade,
Olivier's performance
Olivier's
is
performance.
not subtle. That is
No,
not
it is
subtle.
not subtle. So this is a film stage version, and the star of this movie is Laurence Olivier. This is
God, does he
Othello's
put
play.
himself front and center?
Yeah. This is Othello's play. This is no longer Iago's play. He dominates this thing. Yeah,
Although
and
to be fair, Iago is great.
Iago's good, and Iago is great. Maggie Smith as Desdemona is
She
great.
she makes the role more interesting than it should be.
Yeah, it is. It actually was greeted with a slew of um, Oscar nominations. So there were Oscar
Did any of them
nominations
win?
for no one won,
Okay.
but all four of the leads were nominated,
Who's the
including
fourth?
Joyce Redman as Amelia. So
Oh,
Frank
interesting. Oh, she does.
Finlay.
She's actually really good.
Mhm. Yeah,
She's really good. I didn't know she was nominated. That's cool. She's good.
yeah. It was well received, and it did well at the Oscars. Um, it was actually odd. So Finley playing Iago was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, even though he had more lines than the lead actor. and, the, and the reason for that is
Because
Laurence
this is
Olivier.
Olivier is just no one was thinking that Iago was the actor and Othello was supporting. I mean, my God, is he chewing the scenery?
It's big. I had to say I have an affection for his performance.
It's a good. I mean, okay, so let's start with the racist thing. I mean, it's the blackface is over the top, but
It's yeah, there's a sort of tradition where when people I remember this from Restoration too, where people play Othello, they're playing a more not necessarily a sub-Saharan African. There's like a distinction
yeah,
that they would make, and so the kind of blackface that you see with Orson Welles is probably more typical, where it's just very light. Like this is not this is a different. It's not a sub-Saharan African race. This is something else. Olivier's more is sub-Saharan African.
yeah. I mean, it's over the top. I mean, it's
He looks purple at some points, right? He looks like
I mean, it
purple
looks really
blue.
weird. It looks really weird.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
very, very thick.
he looks like a space figure at certain points. Like you're like, that's not a human skin tone. I don't know if that's Technicolor or what that is. It's weird.
Mhm.
And so you just kind of have to go, okay, it's weird. It's sort of weird to watch, but we're gonna move on. Like
Yeah.
you just gonna go, okay, we're moving on. And that's just what we're gonna do. I think with our discussion, we have to
Yeah, I go
acknowledge it.
past that. Yeah.
We have to acknowledge it and move on. But
Yeah.
it's like his performance is, I will say that I did buy my complaint with Othello, having read it, is always that when I read it, I don't get this guy's reaction seems stupid because it just seems so over the top. Whereas Olivier's and that's sort of what I get with Orson Welles' performance. Like it's just sort of in a dream, which is sort of what Orson Welles' feels like. It's sort of you just go, okay, yeah, this is how you respond in a dream. You don't always respond logically. You go this way. With Olivier's one, it's much more naturalistic. And so I will buy his performance. Like I actually kind of buy his progression. I sort of see it, you get it a lot more. You can see his sort of just his reactions, as crazy as they are, just feel like that. They feel like insane.
Oh
And
yeah.
they feel like an individual becoming increasingly unhinged from reality by this sort of Spider-Man manipulating him. Like that's what it feels like. It feels like a fly caught in a web. And you sort of you buy it. I actually do buy it.
Yeah.
Um
He is in the most pain of any of these
yeah.
performances. And he's driven crazy. And when the contingency from Venice comes to visit
Yeah.
him and he hits Desdemona in front of them, he's lost his mind at that
Yeah, I
point.
mean he's insane.
Yeah,
He's out of yeah.
he's laughing hysterically at points. And I think with Olivia's performance, I buy it. I
Yeah,
buy
that's what
the
I mean. I buy it.
yeah.
I absolutely buy this performance. I buy this is where I go, okay, if I saw this, I could accept that this would be the way that this scene would progress. Reading it, no. It always feels disconnected. It always doesn't it always feels like the Romeo and Juliet thing where we're just waiting for a series of events to connect this thing together so they'll die together. This Olivier's performance, I go, yeah, you know what, this actually does feel like this is what's happening to this person.
Mhm. Yeah, and he's you even get it from the beginning. The first time you see him, he's clearly just slept with her on the wedding night of
Yeah.
Othello and Desdemona, and he's got the flower, and he's sort of giggling, kind of
It's a
happily.
weird opening. Yeah, it's a
It's a
weird
weird
opening.
opening, but he's just like filled with lust, and you see like this is a guy who's just he's sort of generally over the top. like
Yeah.
he's like he has sex over the top. He just does everything over the top. And you could see, I think even there, the sort of potential for madness in this person.
Yeah.
Right? There's this you understand why he's attractive because he's just so big, but you could see like, man, this guy could go nuts at a moment. And he really does. He really does. And I loved and I really kind of felt his pain too,
Yeah.
which is not something you get with the Orson Welles one. And a lot of times you get this is kind of like the Lawrence Fishburne one that we didn't do from 1995, where Othello's always kind of stoic. Like I'm gonna buy this ridiculous thing and I'm gonna stoically kill my wife because like there's this odd disconnect there. And he's not a stoic. He's never a stoic, Olivier's Othello.
Well, this is where the sort of gesture thing, as we talked about, kind of comes in. I mean, he's flamboyant with his hands and his arms and his back, and he's just arching and throwing and like it's a very physical performance, and you kind of go, yeah. I mean, you do feel for this guy, like you do follow it. You kind of go, you're a moron, but you kind of still go, yeah. You feel bad for the guy. You see what's going through it. Um, so it's a weird performance. But this is what we're saying. Like I think this is a highly stylized, physical, gesture-driven performance.
It's probably closer to the original. It's probably closer to Burbage's Othello in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's stylized, but it's really I get the sense of someone who has lost something utterly precious to him. I rarely get that with Othello things. With Othello productions.
The only other one I've seen is O, so we're not going to count.
Oh yeah, well,
We're not going to count that.
but or even on stage where there's just
It's the only one of these I've never seen on stage, by the way. I think
no,
of almost every one we've done. It's the only one I've never seen
it's
Othello
on
on
stage.
stage.
Yeah, it's on stage now with Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Our friend Eric went to go see that. Our friend
Uh,
Eric was there
oh,
the night that Obama went to go see it.
oh, all right. How was it? Did he say?
Well, you know Eric, he loved
Oh, did he?
it. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming he posted all over Instagram, being like, Denzel Washington, it was a great night. Like it
He's
was.
pretty critical about theater, though.
Yeah, but I think when he posts online and, about a
Oh, then he
big
likes it.
production,
Hmm.
well, I think it's when he posts about a big production online and Obama was there and it was a big night. I think
Hmm.
it seemed like he was just like, it was the night. I'm not going to comment on the production itself, though.
Ah.
So I don't know if he actually liked the production.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I've seen Denzel do Shakespeare before. He did the Macbeth. Oh, we saw him in Much Ado.
yeah, and he's great in Much Ado. I think he actually does.
Yeah, he's
He's not
fine.
great, but he's good in Much Ado. He doesn't botch the verse. He handles it.
He
He
handles it.
handles it
Yeah.
with, he doesn't ride. He rides it like a pony. Like he does. He doesn't.
He just ride it like a stallion. He
Yeah,
rides it
you
like
know
a
what I mean.
pony.
Like he does not fall off, but he rides it with a certain level of competence. But it's not the grace of. I mean, Olivier is out there. If we're gonna go with the horse analogy, Olivier is riding a stallion full like at absolute peak speed without a saddle. Like that man is just absolutely flying furious out there. And yeah, sometimes it feels really scary. He's not hanging on, but it works. But it's a terrifying level of speed with which he's going through the verse.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I agree. Because you're waiting for it to fall. You're waiting for
yeah,
it to fall flat. For him to fall off, to continue your analogy. And it work I think it works from beginning to end.
yeah.
Once you get accustomed to, for me, it was the eyes. Like he does these weird things with
He
his
does these
eyes.
weird things with his eyes, and they kind of buck open, and it again, it's like the purple skin thing is weird.
Yeah, it does. I don't know if he's wearing something in his eyes, like if he's wearing lenses on them, because his eyes don't look
His
right.
eyes don't look normal. There's just a lot of weird abstractions for a play that's supposed to be pretty naturalistic. I don't also don't know if because this have a feeling of just a staged, a filmed
Yeah,
play.
that's what it was.
Yeah, I
Filmed
mean
National Theaters.
the sets are actually quite good. Which I love the National Theatre, in London. It's one of my favorite theaters. The Olivier Theatre and the National Theatre in London is beautiful. Um, but I don't know if that's because he was doing something that he did. I mean, he was smart enough though to know not to do that on film, so he must have been doing it intentionally, right?
Oh,
But
I
it's
think
like
he
it
did
feels like it's
everything.
like a it feels like it's like a leftover from a filmed stage play where he was like trying to do something to project to a back row but that you don't do on film.
There was a review which I read about it, and the reviewer had seen it on stage and then in film, and he or she, I don't remember the reviewer's name, had mentioned that same
It's the
thing. 50s.
50s. We can probably assume it was
It's a hey, yeah.
this
But
is not a great time.
but it's the he mentioned like the eye thing. Because I thought it was like it's odd. What is he? He doesn't seem to be looking at the person he's talking to sometimes.
No,
Sometimes
he
he
kind of
just
just stares off,
he kind
and
of
I'm like,
stares
and
off or looks down and looks up. And they had
that's why I
mentioned
assumed it was a leftover from stage. But again, I'm like, but he's a smart enough man. He's not. He's filmed. He's done film before. What is he doing?
one of the arguments was it is a blackface technique that was used much earlier on. Apparently, the jazz singer does this when they have those things. But I don't know if that's I don't know what that communicates though.
Well, I don't know if it's. I mean, again, it could be something that he does. I'd have to kind of pay attention to. Now I'd have to go back to look at some of Olivier's other performances. Does he do this in his other performances, but it doesn't look so odd when he's not?
I don't remember any other ones. Like Richard, he's very head on. Right, he always kind
But
of
that's because he's
stares you
almost.
down.
Yeah, he does. He stares everyone down. Henry, he definitely doesn't do it.
Yeah, he's not doing.
No, so then what is it? I
I
don't know. Maybe
think it's
that.
just something with the character. Like this is how the character. I mean, he's an outward to inward guy. He works on these
Yeah, I
characters.
know. I know he did very outward. Yeah.
Yeah, so I could see him being like, well, this is how his eyes are. This is how his skin is. This is how his nose is. This is, that type of thing, and working from there. And it's a weird choice. It's the choice, besides the obvious, that didn't work for me. I don't.
Yeah. It. No, I agree.
Yeah, it didn't happen so often that it was distracting, um, but yeah,
It
it's.
happened enough that I noticed it too, though. That
Well,
I
I
was like,
noticed
"What
it.
is
Yeah,
he? I'm like, what is he? What is he doing?
why isn't he looking at his wife?
Why is he just staring off at me? He's doing this and pulling his head back in like a weird way. It's a weird, yeah, it's a weird acting choice. Um,
Yeah, it is a shame that, and this is something Pauline Kael wrote about, that they couldn't get money to make it a real movie. That's just sort of a film stage
I
thing.
don't know. I think if you did much more, you would have broken it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
It's like I love, the Iceman Cometh film version. Just that with what's
with
his
Hickey, with
yeah, with Hickey, what's his name?
I can never remember his name.
Oh gosh, if
Robert
I
Redford.
Robert, no, not well, Robert, yeah, yeah, the one, of
Mm,
course, of all the
mm.
actors we're going to talk about, Robert Redford. Why am I blanking on his name? He won 2 Academy Awards.
Did he win two? What
Um,
was his second one for? I know he won for Julia.
he won for another one. He's because there's only like a certain number of
Jason
actors who
Robards.
Jason Robards. There's only a certain number of actors who've won more than one Best Actor, and it's like Jason Robards, Jack
Jack.
Nicholson, My Left Foot Dude,
Oh, Daniel
um,
Day-Lewis won three,
Daniel
I think.
Day-Lewis. Hmm?
I think he won three.
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone's won three, has he? I think it's only two. I think men have only won two. No one's ever won three, I don't
Did
think.
Daniel Day-Lewis win for Lincoln and for There Will Be Blood?
I don't think he won for There Will Be Blood.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
he has won three. I thought there's only been two. I thought men have only won two. Because there's Katharine Hepburn's won four. Frances McDonald has won three. And someone else has won three. But I don't think men have ever won more than two. I thought
So
anyway.
Walter Brennan won three for all for Best Supporting. Jack Nicholson won two. Actor and one Best Supporting.
Oh, so maybe okay. So I must be
Oh,
confused
and
then.
Daniel
Maybe
Day-Lewis
I was
did
thinking.
win 3 for Best
Oh,
Actor.
so he did win three. Okay, so I must be thinking three, not two. So I'm confused then.
Whatever.
But Jason
Um,
Robards is won two, right? Or is Jason Robards won three? I thought Jason Robards had won as many as Jack Nicholson and Daniel Day-Lewis. I love the
he
internet. This is
won,
great.
yeah, he won 2 for All
Okay,
the
so he only won two.
President's Men, and of course for playing Dashiell Hammett in
Maybe Blaine
Julia.
Dash Limit. Okay, so only one, two. Either way. But I love Jason Robards in Iceman Cometh. I love the Iceman Cometh. I actually kind of want to watch it. I really want to
Yeah.
watch that movie again. I love that movie, and it's just a stage version of a play. And I think if you ever in a million years tried to do a natural version, Iceman Cometh is a play. It is not a movie. It should never be filmed as a movie. It would be just stupid. It'd be like watching Cheers with sad people. Like it's a bad thing to ever be made into a
Cheers
movie.
without the laugh track.
It's
That's what we
just
should put on the poster.
I actually saw a very good live production of Iceman Cometh starring Nathan Lane
I
of all
saw the
people.
same one at
Oh,
BAM,
did
right?
you? Bam, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I liked it, except for the one weird decision. They did everything uncut, except they merged the policeman and the circusman.
Yeah, I
Did you
remember
notice
that.
that?
The policeman wasn't there, right?
Yeah, he just wasn't there, and they gave his lines to the circusman. I was like,
Yeah, I remember
why?
that.
But of all you kept every other thing in this 4.5 hour long play. Why did you cut one character anyway? Um, but yeah, I think that the stage version, some things should be staged. They should just be plays. And when you try to do them as naturalism, they are so bad. And Othello might be in that category.
You need to do something different, like Wells does.
Yeah, you can't do this thing because it's just otherwise it's just stupid. It's just melodrama. Like it's just there's no sense of if you try to do this thing and give these guys real spaces, I think it doesn't work. Um, Whereas the Wells version, I think it has its flaws, but it works because they're not in a real space. And I think this works because it's a real space. I think if you'd done this as a if you'd added more money, it would have broken it. So I don't mind that it's done in an abstract space almost as if it's a stage play. You could have done a little more maybe, but I wouldn't have done much.
I understand the point you're making, and it's also the Othello we saw with Wells isn't really Shakespeare's Othello.
No.
Wells is adding lines into it. He's not respected the integrity of virtually anything. I mean, there's no speeches that are unified in it. And so it seems like there's a few lines he likes. He has some images that it inspired, and that's about it. So yeah, I understand the point you're having, and it's also the problem a lot with Shakespeare, which Kenneth Branagh gets around somehow. I don't know what his alchemy is, but the problem with Shakespeare is the plots just are the least interesting things in them. They're always like the
Yep.
least interesting things in Shakespeare. I mean, Lear, it's a little more engaging, and the history plays I think are a little different. The
History
history
plays have
plays
more
are
of
a
a
little
plot.
different,
Yeah,
yeah.
history plays have more of a plot.
But I think with film, as opposed to theater, you just because of the nature of cutting, you need more stuff to happen. While theater, you can sit down and listen to Hickey talk or listen to Iago talk for a little while.
Well, because the eyes can wander during stage, the eyes wander. Like that's what during Hickey's 20-minute monologue, like my eyes wander. You stare at other characters. You look at the bar. You look at the bottles. You look at the mirror. Like your eyes pick what they're going to look at, and they wander around the stage. The film just can't leave just a. It can't leave a static shot the way that your eyes do, the way a stage does, and people just wander around it. It doesn't. Film doesn't have the right depth for that, and it doesn't. You can't just keep shooting back and forth amongst all the people. I mean, that's kind of what the film version does, but mostly it just follows the dude around and it just lets you just say like, we're just going to treat it like it's a stage film. And essentially that kind of works, but because yeah, the long static shots are rare in film.
Yes, yeah, because they don't, like you're saying, they don't play well, and maybe that's why Shakespeare just hasn't played well as Shakespeare. It's a film is a bad way. Maybe this speaks
Hamlet
poorly.
does. Hamlet does.
Hamlet worked, yeah, yeah. I don't
Olivier's
know.
oh not Olivier Branaght's Hamlet works.
Yeah, Olivia's Hamlet works too, and both
Yeah,
of
but that's
them.
so slashed to pieces.
Yeah, but Brandon's Hamlet, yeah, preserves all of it. I don't know why that works. I mean, Much Ado, he preserves most of that, and
But
that
preserves a
works
significant chunk of it. Henry V preserves a huge chunk of it. I
hugely.
think it's Branagh's just very good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what makes it. I think he understands there's a lot of movement in his stuff. And even in Hamlet, even though it's mostly in that one room and those adjoining rooms, he tries to
So
adjust
good.
it.
Yeah, it just constantly flings. Yeah.
Yeah, different things. He arranges that space differently. But yeah, I think Shakespeare just doesn't, for the most part, it doesn't film well because it doesn't have a lot of plot.
Yeah, and when you try to make it about the plot, again, the histories work okay. The comedy's fine. The tragedies become a huge challenge.
Yeah, like what plot does Hamlet have?
Yeah.
It's actually kind of silly. But Lear might be a little better. Lear's a little more action, and we'll see that next week, obviously.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. Oh, we didn't talk about Othello. I didn't. So audience, I didn't watch today's assignment. I
Didn't do
didn't get
his
to Othello.
homework.
That yeah, I have children. We have
I do
we have
not, so it's
a
nice and
two and
easy
a
for me.
half week old baby. We didn't get to it. Um, which again is named after Shakespeare now. But yeah, we didn't talk about Othello.
So Othello is interesting. I mean, the history of it, it's probably the most popular opera ever. And
It's Verity, right?
it's Verdi. It's Verdi's second to last. He retired in 71, and then he came back at the kind of the behest of Argio Boito, the librettist, who was part of this art movement that basically criticized old artists, including Verdi, and he more or less sent a "I'm sorry" letter to Verdi. Please come out of retirement. I have a great idea for doing Shakespeare. And he did this, and then his last play was called Falstaff, which is his version of The Merry Wives of Windsor.
Oh God.
It's interesting because so this is breezy. It's like so the Zaffarelli is about 2 hours long. The uncut opera is only about two and a half. It's pretty quick. It's four acts instead of five. It starts with Othello arriving in Cyprus, which is awesome. It's this
I've heard the intro. Yeah, I've
yeah, the
heard
intro
that.
is
Yeah.
great because it starts with this like very dissonant key. I think it's like G sharp or something. Where it's just, and then he comes in and he sings in a C. So apparently it just like it evens out when he's there, that type of thing. Um, and it's just breezy because apparently this is the sort of um, late or end of the bel canto phase. And so the bel canto phase in opera, you know this, but for our audience, it's where you separate out the aria and the recitative. And in this, he doesn't do that. There's sort of like there's not really recitative or aria. They're sort of mixed together, and it makes it work so much better because you're not just waiting for someone to sing the aria. You're not sitting there going, "Oh my God, fat lady, let's hurry it up. Let's get to the song." They're sort of integrated really nicely. And the Desdemona thing at the end, there's she sings a willow song. Um, it's called the Willow Song about a woman, when she's facing
But a
death.
willow.
Yeah, yeah, and about her mother seeing this woman in the willows, and it leads
The best
into
willow song. The best willow song will always be the Innocence.
I don't.
You don't know the In
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm
When
talking
you
about?
said that, I thought the band, The Innocents. I don't know that band, and then I
No, no,
realized it was
no. The
the
Truman
Jack
Capote one.
Clayton movie.
The Truman Capote one,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
And Jack Clayton, sure, he directed, but Truman Capote wrote it.
Wrote it. Yeah,
Um,
um,
that's a great Willow song.
yeah. But it leads from that into a sort of it's not an Ave Maria, but a praise to Mary type thing. And it's really beautiful. But it's a good opera for that sense. If you're not a opera person or haven't seen a lot of operas, which I suppose I fall into that category.
My
Mm,
entire knowledge of opera comes from the great courses, and I think, I
Robert
think,
Greenberg.
yeah, good old Robert Greenberg, um, Monteverde. Um,
Yes. Hmm.
he's, but it's like that's all my knowledge of opera. Um, So I feel like, and my, as I said, I go, when I didn't get to watch it today, I got out my copy of John Tasker Howard's World's Great Operas and my Metropolitan Guide to Opera, and I quickly read up on Othello, and I went, well, it sounds like it's pretty much the same. So,
Yeah, the plot's a little collapsed. They do the
yeah.
napkin thing. They're not in Venice ever.
Well, I mean, opera is always never about a plot. It's always, you're moving quickly through this stuff. So,
Yeah. So it's that type of thing. And apparently, initially Verdi wanted the Turks to invade at one point, and like that's how it would end. And Boito apparently convinced him not to. He said, the sense we should have with the music is that you're trapped in a room and suffocating. And if an
yeah,
outside force invades, you're just letting the air in. It's not
yeah, I
gonna,
would agree with that.
yeah. And so, and
But that's
it's,
kind of that's the Hamlet kind of thing, and then you do let Fortinbras in, and then the air is out, and you sort of broke it. I agree. I think he's right.
yeah, yeah. And that's also the sense. There's kind of like claustrophobia there. And again, I think it might be the fact that like there's no there's no delineation between when they're talking and when they're ariaing or whatever it is, just belting out or whatnot. So everything just moves so quickly, and Zaffarelli cuts about 30 minutes from it too. So there's bits here and there that just aren't appearing in it, and so for an opera, it just feels condensed. Othello is like ready to kill by the end of Act Two. So an hour in, he's and he's like nothing really has happened, and he's ready to
I
go.
mean, there's an interesting thing. I'm just going to throw out. There's an interesting thing here. The fact that, I mean, the other three great ones. There's no. I mean, Otello, from what I understand of opera, I'm not an opera person, but I understand that Otello, Verdi's Otello, is a great opera, right? I don't think there's no great opera of Hamlet. There's no great opera of Lear. There's no great Macbeth opera, right? I don't think so.
I think he did a Macbeth. I think
But is it
Verdi.
is it considered a great
I don't
one?
think it's one. I don't think it's as good as this or as Falstaff.
I think there's something interesting here when you're going to go and say of the Shakespeare ones, that the other three great ones don't get turned into operas, and this one does. So there's something unique about it, and I don't know if it's just to your point. It's claustrophobic. It feels enclosed, and it feels very space driven. It feels very you can make this into a closed space with song and everything like that, and let it sort of ferment. And maybe that's why it works with opera, where the other ones are just so they sort of have that Götterdämmerung, sort of just big, large. I mean, Lear has to be big and large because he's outside and there's all this stuff going on. And Macbeth, of course, is big and large, and Macbeth just has all these feelings, or Hamlet has all these feelings, so he has to he has to let them all out. But this one just feels like you can sort of it's simple. You just take these four people, jam them on a stage, and just let it run. And maybe that's why this one works as an opera.
Yeah, it's a streamlined plot too.
Yeah.
I think that's why Macbeth is a not as streamlined as this, but it's fairly streamlined. And I guess you get kind of do an opera buffa thing with Falstaff and the Merry Wives. But that I think you're right. I think it's just it's a single space or mostly a single space, and it's claustrophobic. It's small. There's only a few big roles that need good voices. Um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think unlike, yeah, like you couldn't do, probably somebody has done, but I'm trying to
Well, I'm
imagine
sure all of them turned into into an opera,
but
but
at
it's
some
just
point,
like
are they
Hamlet the
worth it?
opera would be. I'm sorry, Hamlet the opera would be insufferable.
Oh
Listening to
God,
him sing listen to him sing
Tom
those.
Tom York right now is developing. Tom, do you know Tom York from Radiohead? He's the
Oh
lead.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's developing a Hamlet opera right now.
It'd be insufferable. There's no way. No
Yeah, it's
one.
apparently about the surveillance state. So
That's even
I
worse.
mean, that's
It's
he
just like, yeah,
misread
oh
the
God.
play.
As I
Yeah.
say when I turned on Ophelia and I went, oh God, it's a movie with a point. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
movie that wants to teach me
As a
something I
message.
don't. As a message. Oh
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
And but Hamlet, listening to Hamlet sing an aria must be insufferable. Like no one wants to hear him. His speeches are fine, but no one wants to hear Hamlet sing an aria. Like, right? I don't think anyone wants to.
Y-
And
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It doesn't seem like a plot that would appeal.
no.
Yeah.
But I and that's what I'd say. Like Macbeth, but I feel like Macbeth maybe it's a better opera, but it sort of has a feel of like a Gotterdammerung.
Yeah,
Like it just sort of has this.
I think it's also the character. Like the thing with Hamlet is his speeches are fairly complex. They're like argument speeches. He's
Yeah.
thinking through things, which doesn't quite work as well in opera because you
But I guess that's why I
don't
guess that's
really
what I
want to
mean
hear
by
an
no one. I
argument.
don't want to
Yeah.
hear that. Like I don't want to hear that
Well, with
sung
Othello,
at
it's just
me.
like I'm getting cheated on. I'm
I'm
gonna kill my wife. I'm gonna
sad.
kill
Yeah, yeah.
myself. Like it's all this. Yeah, with Hamlet's like I'm sad.
I'm
Lord nature
sad.
of
Let me
sadness.
argue the seven ways of sadness. Like God.
Like, what emotion am I supposed to sing through here?
Yeah, I mean it's like a scholastic presentation of sadness. It's Thomas Aquinas
Summa
sings
Theologica, the
Summa
opera.
Theologia of the yeah, I mean like it's just God, I don't want to hear this. So I don't think Hamlet the opera would ever work. I mean maybe Radiohead. That's sort of what Radiohead songs are. So maybe Radiohead could do it.
Yeah, and
Radiohead's
I
very
like
Radiohead.
Radiohead, but
I
when I
like
heard
Radiohead, but they're
that,
very sad. And
yeah,
you know,
yeah, but when he said it's like it's about the surveillance state, I went, "Oh God,
well
this is
that's
gonna
just
be,
stupid.
yeah,
Um,
this
but I
is."
think Lear the opera, maybe.
You need to cut things. I think like
But you can cut things. I mean, that's what a
yeah,
good librettist is going to do.
yeah,
So,
I don't know, maybe you cut the twins um or stuff with Gloucester. Something along those lines.
you need some other plot, probably. Otherwise, it's just,
It's just Lear
just
wandering around.
Lear wandering
Lear,
around,
Lear and the
yelling at the
Fool.
sun, yelling at the clouds. I mean,
This
what's
might
he
as well
going to
do
do?
Timon of Athens, the
I
opera.
mean, essentially, Lear without any of the plots is Time of Athens.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
it's just, yeah, oh gosh, it really is. Just he
Mm.
gave his money away to his friends instead of his daughters.
Yeah.
Um, so Lear. I don't know if it works. And Macbeth, you could probably make something, but I
Hmm.
don't know if anyone's ever done it. But I think
Well,
there's a
yeah,
reason.
it's Verdi did it.
Yeah, but you said that. But I think it's just like I don't think it's considered a great one. Like
Yeah, no, I've never heard it.
yeah, and but Othello, at least I've heard of fairly consistently as a great opera. So I wonder if there's something about it where Othello works as an opera that these other ones don't, and maybe it explains why I don't really like it. It just feels like this weird, like especially reading it just doesn't. I don't know.
He's not as good. He's not as intellectually interesting as other people. Like even Macbeth. Macbeth explores the conditions he's in really intelligently.
Yeah,
Like and especially by the end of it, like he understands the sort of dark nature of the world he's living in. Hamlet even more so.
and
Lear
Lear,
is great, and
yeah,
and it's also he has I don't know. Lear is also just so touching with what happens with his daughter. This Othello's the dumbest one. He's just
yeah. There's he doesn't,
he's just not as bright as the other guys, and
but no one
Iago
is. I mean, Iago,
Iago is clever.
but he's
He's
not
not imaginative.
bright.
Yeah. Or he's not imaginative in the sense of he's not interested in why he's doing what he's doing.
No.
He's not doing the argument speeches that you hear with Macbeth and with
Or
Hamlet.
with the Hamlet, and
Yeah.
again, even Lear. Lear's kind
Hmm.
of doing that to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah, Iago doesn't do that. Iago's just like, I hate the Moor, therefore this is what I'm going to do. You
And the
get
Moor
plot.
just sort of has, as I said, Moor just has this puritanical sense of righteousness, and he's
Mhm.
going to bring vengeance down.
Yeah.
Um, and it's
Desdemona's good.
just, just
She's there.
she's like the. That's like I always think of. There's the line. It's in Aeschylus. I think it's the like she's like a statue. You know, just it's just like she's just yep, she's there. So I wonder if that might be why I don't like it very much. It's very, yeah.
Yeah, the only like the things I would read out loud. Well, no,
Very good speeches. It's not like
there
it's
is
badly
actually
written,
Othello
obviously.
does have that argument with himself. I'm going to put out the light and then put out the light.
That's actually one of the best moments in
That's
Olivier's one. It's one of the
yeah.
best moments in the Olivier one is when he says, "Yeah, if I put out this light, I can light it back up. I can light it again. But if I murder you, I can never bring that light back." That's actually one of the best moments in Olivier's version.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best moments in the play. That's when I've reread it before. Like that's or when I pick it up again, that's the part I go to. Like I like hearing that speech out loud. I like reading it. I like that speech, and I like Iago's speech from Act One when he puts out the plot. Thus do I ever make my fool my purse. That speech. Those are the two things I like, and I think it's both of those speeches. They're figuring something out. Like
Yeah,
Iago has to figure something out there, and Othello has to he's actually thinking through the implications of what
of
he's
what he's about
doing,
to do. Yeah,
which he never does. Right? He rarely does that. That's the point where he stops and is like, well, what the hell am I doing? What does this mean? And then he sort of gets dumb again because then she wakes up and she's like, kill me tomorrow. And he's like, no, I just got to do this. And kind of finishes the job. So maybe, yeah, I think maybe that's it. Maybe that's why it's just so much less compelling. There just isn't enough of that.
yeah. No one's doing any
Yeah.
introspection. No one's really thinking about their actions. Maybe
Hmm.
that's the point. But
Amelia is a little bit. Actually, she does. When she's sitting with Desdemona and they're like, would you cheat on
oh
your
yeah,
husband
that's the
for all the
greatest. Yeah,
world? Yeah. She's like, for all the world? Yes.
yes.
It's the whole
They
world.
treat us like shit. Why would I
Yeah.
not? Of course I would sleep with another man.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a stupid question.
Yeah, she's great. I want to see her opera. That's what
Well, now you know. You gotta go. You gotta get on that.
yeah, we'll watch Talking Pictures Trivia. We'll now create Amelia the
The
Opera,
opera,
written by Pat and Tom, two people who
and
definitely
it will,
should be writing an
and it
opera.
will star the woman from the Star Wars movies who played Ophelia. She played
Oh,
Ophelia. You loved her as Ophelia. Now see her as Amelia.
yeah, yes, it
They
rhymes.
rhyme.
They do. Okay. Any last thoughts before we close
Nah,
out?
I think we've exhausted this.
We've exhausted this. Yes, when Daisy Ridley comes up, we've exhausted this. She's the hook that pulls us off the stage. If you enjoyed Othello, check out these adaptations. The 1922 German silent film starring Emil Jannings, which I think he was the first Oscar winner, right? The 1955 Soviet version, the 1995 Oliver Parker version starring Lawrence Fishburne and Kenneth Branagh, The Boss, which is an Egyptian version from 1957, A Double Life, directed by George Cukor, with an Oscar-winning performance by Ronald Colman, a 2009 Italian film called Iago, a 1956 Western called Jubal, starring Ernest Borgnine, and, of course, everyone's favorite adaptation, Oh, starring Josh Hartnett.
Please don't watch that movie. Don't give the penny of streaming revenue to the people
They don't deserve it.
they don't deserve for that movie.
You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found.
Join us next time when we discuss King Lear from 1971, as directed by Grigory Kozintsev and translated by Boris Pasternak, and the Laurence Olivier version from 1983. See you then.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week we'll be discussing King Lear. Pat, if you could play one role in this play, what would it be?
I think I would play, if I had my druthers, I would play Edmund, I think. Um, Mostly because I like him because he's one of Shakespeare has a tendency with his sort of like literal bastard characters to just sort of make them like unreasonably evil. Just, it's like the John the Bastard, where you sort of like this character is just evil and they literally will say like I don't know why I'm evil, but I'm evil. You kind of get the sense with Edmund that he's bad, but sort of, especially in that opening scene, it's like he's bad because he's constantly being insulted in really funny ways by his father. And there's this sense I like the evil that they give him and the sort of justification for his evil. It feels like there's a much more of that than in most of the other Shakespeare. That this is an evil character with a good reason for being evil, and it makes it a lot more fun to portray. So I think I would play, that's what I would like to play. I'd probably play like Kent. Just yell at people, be put in the stocks. That's what I would get. But I would like to be Edmund.
Yeah, Edmund's interesting because his also redemption comes from, and then we'll talk about this next week, his redemption comes from realizing that he was loved. That's when he's able to like do good. So yeah, you're right. That's a great. I would like to play that character as well. That would be my favorite. I could also see me getting Kent. I think like I would prefer to play.
It's so boring.
It's so boring. Yeah, it's the boring guy amongst the train.
He's the straight man. He's the straight man amongst all this. Like
Yeah.
he's sort of he never really suffers. Nothing really goes that badly for him. And
He also
then
doesn't have that much defining. He doesn't have like a defining
No.
speech or a characteristic other than he's generally loyal. Yeah, he's kind of the dullard of them. I could see myself getting Cornwall.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's a decent role because you get to be a little evil. You get to, be a bit of a bastard. I think Albany's a bit boring, even though he's
He's
in
a bit
more of
boring
play.
because he's just sort of obvious that he's
Yeah.
like, it's not my fault you're in the stock. He's just
Yeah.
sort of like although I think that's actually
Gloucester,
it's
who says
Gloucester
that.
who says that.
Yeah.
But he's sort of the I wish this didn't happen, and then he kind of goes along with it, which I get it. I understand the character, but yeah, he's not very much fun.
He's not fun. No, that would be, I think, one of those roles, either Edmund, depending on how you wanted to do him, or Albany, or Cornwall. I would love to play the Fool, but I would never get cast as the Fool.
Yeah, I mean the Fool. It's really good. Well, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
The Fool is really good, and I would never get cast as the Fool.
Yeah.
Never. It's a terrible role for me, but it's a great role.
That's a great role.